Hey everyone, welcome back to Riffs Across Generation. I'm your host, Andrew, and I'm here with my co host,
Eli.
Eli. This interview, we are going to turn back the clock to when I got into our guest band. Do you remember the year 1987, Eli?
I do not.
Well, Gammacide released this sucker right here. And they were, for me, top of the world thrash metal band. At that point, doing crazy stuff, sounding crazy stuff, no laid back intros, no hesitating on, slow parts, no uh, melody. It was straight balls to the wall thrash metal. And I am happy to have returning talking to me after 36 years, Rick Perry
Yeah,
from the band Gammacide. What's going on, Rick?
not too much. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit before the podcast started here, and I did speak to you 36 years ago via the phone. I don't remember all the details. I had to read back through the interview because that is a very long time ago, and my brain is not as good as it used to be. Um, but yeah, I think you were one of my first. You were in my second issue of my fanzine back in the day. Loved you guys when you came out. It was right when you released your album with Wild Rags, and we'll get into that a little bit. I think you and I share a little similar story of how we got into heavy music. If I'm correct, you listened to a lot of Kiss, and that kind of got you into it. When I was young, that was the band that introduced me to heavier music. And then it was Black Sabbath and AC/DC and all those. So is that kind of how you rolled into heavier music, or what got you into it?
Pretty much the same thing. Yeah, I was. Uh, the first band I was into whenever I was in junior high was Kiss. Big time. I was totally into Kiss, and that was around the time of like Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun. And the first concert I saw was Kiss on the Love Gun tour. My dad
Nice.
took me to the concert, and after that, branched off into Ted Nugent and AC/DC and Black Sabbath, and then later on, Judas Priest and things like always getting a little heavier and darker if possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think Jailbreak really from AC/DC really got me into trying to
yeah,
find bands that nobody was like listening to at the time. And there was Hell's Bells was out and that AC/DC, but turning back the clock and listening to older AC/DC really got me interested into searching for music, I think it was.
yeah, and I still love that stuff. That's still the best
Yeah.
stuff to me.
Me too. Me too. So when we talk, when I talk to younger kids or Eli's generations, it's they listen to it as that's way older music, but putting
Dad
it in,
rock.
yeah, putting it in context, that was pretty extreme and out of the box back then. And maybe if you were
Yeah,
wearing your Black Sabbath shirt to middle school or high school, you were very much frowned upon.
yeah, it's true.
So what band first got you into like the more extreme underground type music? In thrash or in more heavy metal type music.
Well, I was big time into Priest and Scorpions and Iron Maiden and things like that. And there was a record store here in Arlington that had a little import section, and I was looking through there, and that's where I started checking out bands like Venom and Motorhead, Saxon, Bitch, the first Metal Massacre compilation, things like
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
And so I was always on the quest to find new, darker, heavier music, um, and you know that continued for a long time. I would always go up to the record store and be flipping through, and I also was reading Kerrang magazine, because they sold Kerrang as an import,
Yep.
and I was always reading Kerrang or some of the other early metal fanzines like Kick Ass Monthly was a great one, and Sledgehammer Press and
Yeah.
Metal Forces.
So back then Kerrang
So
was expensive, right? It was 550 or something because there was an import. I remember like picking up going, wow, it's like
I don't
twice as much
I
as
don't
the
remember
domestic
being that
ones.
much. I don't remember it costing that much at the store I bought them at. I think it seemed like they're only a couple bucks, but
Yeah, it's
I
probably
can't
getting
really
ripped off.
remember. Yeah, maybe so, but I started buying Kerrang around the probably about the 12th or 13th issue. I still have them all, and yeah, that I would read through, and there was no internet back then, so you just kind of had to go by what the writers, how they described the music. And so you
Yeah.
would read it and say, oh, that sounds like something I would be into. And then you would, you had to really do your research to track down some of these bands.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure how Gammacide got on your radar. Did you
I
read about us in another fanzine and then write to
Tape
us or
Trader.
something? Or?
Tape Trader sent me
Okay. All right.
a couple live songs that you had a show he recorded, and I was like, "Whoa, who's this guy?" And then, I started doing my fanzine, and then I wrote to you, and you sent me the demo, and then we connected on the phone, and
Yeah. We got, we had a PO box, and we got, after a while, we were getting tons of mail every day, and
yeah,
that was really part of the day that I really looked forward to, was
me
going down
too.
and checking the mail and see, because we felt like we were really making, progress, because, we were getting letters from, Poland or Chile or Italy or wherever, and, it felt like we were really, making an impact. Um, and then, they would ask us to do an interview, and then maybe 6 weeks or, 6 months later, you would have the fanzine would appear, and
Yeah.
then people in that community would read that magazine, and then they would write to us. So it was a good chain reaction. It was slower than it is now with the internet, but it was I think it was cooler. I think you kind of, you appreciated it more because it took a little work to try to dig up these bands.
Yeah, it took a lot to put just a simple fanzine together. I remember, like, having to contact the bands and wait for them to contact back if it was mail, and then get the interviews
Yeah.
and type it all up, and then do the cut and paste, and then having to go to the print shop, and then you're selling them at local shows, hoping that people buy them, and then the mail day was the best day because you'd get three
How many
$1
issues did
bills.
you end up doing?
Maybe like 30.
Yeah, 30.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
pretty good.
30. So yeah, it was good. It was yeah, my love of music. Yeah, it was it
So
just yeah.
that was from what? From 1987
80
through
89, 89. I started the fanzine to like,
mm,
92, 93.
okay, 30 issues, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't bad. It never got I had, dreams of it selling thousands and thousands of issues, but that wasn't the case back then. I mean, even the underground band. So when your demo came out, what did that look like for like sales, or how many of those were printed?
It sold pretty good. We, uh, we we recorded our demo at, Pantego Studios, which was, where, the, Pantera, their dad worked there. And, the first 3 Pantera records were all recorded there at that Pantego Studios. And, that was the only recording studio back then that had any experience with metal here in Dallas Fort Worth. So that's where we went. And, so we recorded our demo there, and, we took the extra step of getting a nice cover made. We had the cover, uh, you know, kind of a more, yeah, with the lyrics inside
Yeah,
and
yep,
everything, and
yep.
some artwork on the front. It wasn't just like a hand drawn thing or something. And, we sold pretty good. I think we probably actually sold over 1,000 of those.
Nice.
Yeah, because we got the first
Yeah, it was
batch of 500, and
was
yeah, we
pretty
sold them
nice,
at
yeah.
shows. We sold them at shows, and of course, we sent it to all the labels and, to people overseas that asked for them, or sent us $4 in the mail or whatever. And then, uh, yeah, I know we got it repressed 2 or maybe 3 times, so it was between, 1,000 and maybe 1,200 or 1,500 copies. So, pretty good for just like doing your own cassette,
Yeah.
selling out of our house.
Yeah, and that doesn't take into account how many people just recorded it and sent it as tape
Right,
traders,
and
and I
dubbed
think
it
that
and
was a
sent it to
big
their
thing,
friends or
yeah.
whatever.
So that's where I
Yep,
heard
and,
most of my new music back in the day were just bootlegs.
yeah, yeah, and then would get that murky quality because it had been dubbed over, like, so many times,
Yeah,
or
yeah, but
and
if
which
you
made it
like the
sound even cooler in some way because it kinda
yeah,
sounded more mysterious.
and if you really like the band, what you heard, then you reach out to the band and you get their real stuff, and then that's kinda how, I found you guys and got the demo. Was I heard some murky stuff, and then I was like, "Oh, shit, I like these guys."
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Talk to
Yeah, we
me.
sent it to, all the labels, and, we were playing shows around Texas at the time. Uh, we played, in our hometown a lot, and we went down to Austin or San Antonio, Houston. We went up to Oklahoma City. We were playing around, and we were trying to get, uh, signed to another a label to put us out. And, we talked to Metal Blade and Combat and all those guys back then, but they all said that they just wanted to hear more music. They liked it, but they wanted to hear more. And one of the people that was selling our demo was Richard C. from Wild Rags out there in California, and he was selling. He had asked me to send him like 10 of them to sell in his shop, and then he asked for 10 more, and I guess we were selling pretty good over there. And and then he told me I went out there to visit him because my parents lived in California, and I went out there and I visited him, and he told me about the label he was starting, and because he had put out a couple records, like Recipients of Death and a couple other bands like that, and and I said, well, what about us? You do one with Gammacide, and he said, yeah, and so that's what we did. We paid for the recording ourselves. We were playing at this club in Fort Worth called Joe's Garage all the time, and they paid us pretty good every time we played. We saved up our money from several gigs, and we went and recorded the Victims of Science. And it came out on Wild Rags Records. So it was a small label, but they gave us a chance when everyone else was wanting to hear more music, and we were impatient. We wanted to get
Yeah.
rolling right away. So we figured it would be a stepping stone to where we could uh, show other labels what we were capable of, and hopefully move on to the next step.
Yeah. Talk to me about the shows you played early on with Gammacide. Who did you share the stage with? How are those shows compared today?
The early shows we did, we like we just played shows at mostly this club called Joe's Garage was the main place we played. There was um we did a couple battle of the bands things where they had a bunch of bands competing to win some kind of guitar or something like that. We had a couple of those, and mostly just different shows. We played everywhere we could. Like I think when you're a band first starting out, you should try to play as much as possible. So we played anywhere we could. Um, Later on, maybe after we've been doing it for maybe about a year, um, some national acts started coming through town, and we got a chance. The owner of Joe's Garage would call me, and he would ask, Rick, what do you think about this band? Because he didn't know. He was an older guy. He was this Middle Eastern guy named Ab, and he liked the music, but he didn't wasn't familiar with everything. So he would call me and say, "What do you think about this band Death?" Or "What do you think about this band Atrophy?" Or Sacred Reich, or "Well, who's this Creator band? Do you think that they would draw?" And I would say, "Yes, you should get them
Yeah.
to come play here, and let us play with them. We want to open the show for them." And so we got to open up for Death and Sacred Reich and Atrophy. We played with Creator. We played with Dark Angel. We played with Exodus. A lot of bands. I can't even think of them all. Morbid Angel. So we played with a lot of bands back then and opened the show for them, and that helped us. Um, uh, and the shows back then, the scene was very supportive. Back then, eh, we would draw every time we played. It would be 300 to 500 people come to see us play, and it was just like a concert. Where the people were there at the front of the stage before we started, and once we started, there was big mosh pit going on and slam dancing, and it was mayhem. So it was killer. The shows back then were awesome, and we got a reputation as being a strong live band. We played live a lot, and we always gave 100% every time we played. And you know, yeah, we had a real good time. We made friends with lots of bands in other cities too. We would make contact with like the guys in Watchtower in Austin, and so then they would set a show up for us down there, and we'd go down there and play with them. And in turn, we would return the favor and set up a show for them to come up and play with us in Fort Worth. And we did that with Watchtower in Austin, and a band and Dead Horse in Houston. We did that. So and Corpus Christi, there was a band Anchor Watt. we played with.
Yeah, something
And
weird in the water in Texas around that time frame, right? Those bands are all like, playing off time and weird notes, and
yeah, they were.
they're
Yeah,
different type of bands.
definitely, definitely. Texas is a little, the thrash scene in Texas is different than maybe, Bay Area has a certain identifiable sound, and New York also has kind of a more hardcore influence on their thrash. But Texas has all kinds of different, uh, varieties, I guess. Um, Rigor Mortis, of course. We did lots of shows with Rigor Mortis back then. They gave us uh, kind of our first big show. They were playing at a big theater in Dallas called the Arcadia Theater, and they asked us if we wanted to open the show for them. And that was, I think, our second show, and so that was a good
Nice.
chance for us to introduce our new band to all the local thrashers. So that was a good one.
Very cool. I wanted to go back a little bit to your discussion with Richard C. from Wild Rags, and we don't have to get into people have from my day have very strong feelings one way or another about him. There's a lot of people who say they got ripped off totally by him. Some people are in love with him. What I know is that he had some of still to my this day my favorite bands on his record label. I don't know how he found them or whatever, but we mentioned Imptago, Nuclear Death was on there, Hell Witch. Hex had a release in there, and then probably his most famous was the Fallen Angel album by Blasphemy. That still seems to pop up everywhere online, whatever. So how was it working with him? And did you have any bad feelings? Did he get your music out there? I also read somewhere that the guys from Sadistic Intent ended up buying his store because he went off to jail for tax evasion. So there's always crazy stories about Richard C. So what was your
Yeah,
interaction with him like?
he was okay at first. You know, some of the things he did I didn't agree with, and some of the things kind of pissed me off a little bit. He would he would do things like he would print up like merch, like little flyers to sell merch or T-shirts. Okay, and then but you would see him, and and he would send them to you because he would expect you to send them out to everyone, and in theory, he's doing you a favor by helping you, get your merch out there. But then you would look at it, and he would leave the address off of the flyer, or he would, not put the price on there, or
Mm,
something would be messed up to where it was really kind of useless. But then later on, when it was time to get royalties, you would find out that he charged us hundreds of dollars for those flyers. So it was like we were paying for stuff that we didn't ask for, and that
rough.
was really kind of useless in the first place. So there was definitely some things like that that were messed up. But he did pay us, and I know a lot of people probably have been signed to labels that haven't made any money at all ever. But he did pay us some money. Uh, Probably for Victims of Science, we ended up getting like maybe $3,000 in royalties. Um, but in the long run, it all worked out. We got our name out there, and uh, you know, he did do very good promotion on the underground level because he had a mailing list of something like 10,000 people that he would send stuff to every month.
Yeah.
Well, he had a newsletter, and so he was always pushing his bands real hard on the underground level. Um, uh, when we went out to, we did one tour when we went out to California, and I kind of had a little falling out with him because we had some problems with our van on the way out to California, and we needed to get a little money to help repair the van so we could continue the tour. And I called him and asked him if he could give us like an advance. Like I wasn't asking him to give us money, but can you just loan us some money and take it from any royalties that we have coming up? And he wouldn't do it. And and he said, I'm not your daddy, and all this shit. And I said, man, why are you being a dick? And then as soon as I said that, he was like, as soon as that, he flipped out on me, and he wouldn't talk to me anymore. And then I found out that from other bands like Nuclear Death said, yeah, they said he got mad because you called him a dick, and you know
Yeah,
whatever.
we're planning on having Lori Bravo on the podcast in the near future here. Someone ask her about
Yeah, ask her about that.
that's gonna be a good connection.
We played with Nuclear Death when we went to on the way out to California. We played a show in Phoenix, and we did a show with them, and we used to correspond a little back and forth with those guys. And they sent us some home videos, some weird, crazy stuff that they would do on their own, and it
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
Yeah, Lori's still doing
Crazy.
music, and it's pretty far out there type music that she's doing still. It's
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
in
But
that
they,
poetic mode that she does, and
yes, more conceptual art kind of style, I guess.
yeah,
But yeah, and then we lost track with Richard after that. After I called him a dick, he didn't really talk to us anymore. I think I wrote to him a couple times back and forth, but not much happened. Uh, um, I did talk to his daughter about a year or two ago, and she was very nice. And you know, uh, I think he's still alive, but I think he lives in Mexico now or something.
mm,
That's what I heard, but I don't know for sure.
yeah,
Yeah. We talked to a lot of modern bands about record labels and what they say, and they aren't really trying to get signed, but how important was getting signed back then? Was that like a super important thing?
Back then, it was important. Um, uh, it was like the next step to in your career, and we all the bands were trying to get signed. Here in Dallas, it was uh, uh, it was a big shock when Rigor Mortis got signed to Capitol Records because Pantera was always, Pantera was in the clubs back then, and even though Pantera had started off as a kind of a Van Halen party rock type band, they were trying to get heavier, and they were always saying, oh, Gold Mountain is coming to check us out this week, or Metal Blade is coming, or Ron Keel is going to come down. He's going to scout out our band and all this stuff. And every week they were saying stuff like that. And then Rigor Mortis got signed to Capitol, and those Pantera guys just flipped out. They could not
Huh.
believe it, because they thought, they were always saying that thrash was bullshit. But then, then I guess they kind of started changing their tune, and then they met Metallica and things like that happened, and
yeah,
they started getting more in line with it. And Phil was definitely a big factor in influencing them to change their direction. They wouldn't have took the direction that they did if it wouldn't been for Phil. He definitely made him go in that more in that direction that of from Pantera. But yeah, we were trying to get signed, and all the bands were. Um, that's that was the goal, was to get signed and then go on tour and go everywhere and play.
yeah,
Nowadays I don't think it's as important to be signed.
yeah.
Actually,
I definitely introduced Eli to the more not heavy Pantera back in the day. So I had a couple of
yeah,
those albums from
yeah.
back in the day. So we kind of know where they started from and where they went. And also with Rigor Mortis, did you think back then? And this is how I viewed it, if you were an extreme band and you got signed for the most part to a major label, it was the kiss of death because they didn't know what to do with you. So like the Metal Blade or the Roadrunners or the Combats, they would all like know what to do and how to push a band to a certain level. But if you got signed to like Rigor Mortis did, it always seemed like it never ended well.
No, it didn't. And Rigor Mortis, they went backwards. They started on Capitol, and then their next record was on Metal Blade, and their next one was on Triple X. So they went down a step every time instead of going up. It would have been better to start off on Triple X and build it up that way. But whatever. I mean, it turned out good. I guess for them, they took their own path. You like
Yeah.
them?
Rigor Mortis?
Yeah,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They're no Anchor Watt, but
No.
You used a different producer for your next album, Victims of Science. First, then talk to me why it was Armando Pereira. I hope that's how I say his name. We're not good at pronunciation over here. We know that he produced some live stuff for Pestilence and Malevolent Creation. He also did stuff for Sacrifice albums. but you were one of his earlier bands. So talk to me what it was like working with him and how he produced your album, what his thoughts were.
With who?
Uh,
Is it
Amando,
Armando Pereira?
that's probably how you say it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That is actually he actually did not um work with us on Victims of Science. All he did was he re-released it.
Oh,
See, Victims of Science came out in 1989 and or 1990 rather. Um, Armando actually was contacted us when we put out the CD back in 2005 on our own, and then he licensed it to his record label, which is Marquee Records, and he licensed it for Brazil, and so he just licensed Victims of Science and put it out. We didn't actually work with him.
it's my bad note taking right there. There you go.
No problem. No problem.
Did you, when you re-released it, did you remix it? Did you do anything to change the sound of
We
the album?
remastered it.
Yeah.
We remastered it with from the original tapes, and got it sounding good for the for because it had never been on CD before. It only came out on album and cassette back in the original release. So in 2005, we put it out on CD, and it's punched it up some, and we had actually recorded two songs at that time as bonus tracks to put on there. So we put 2 new songs on there.
So talk to me a little bit about and this is kind of, I guess, for the era. What were the lyrics like, and how are they compared to like bands that are a little more sensitive to things today? I know you had one song about, and I think it was about Reagan's Star Wars. Is that accurate? You had yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Endangered species. Basically, it was that was talking about he was Ronald Reagan at the time was talking about this plan. They called it Star Wars, where he was going to have satellites that could shoot down missiles from space and things like that. If another country launched missiles at us, that he could shoot down any missiles that were coming at us, and we were kind of looking at the future of computers, and maybe computers might take over, kind of predating the idea of artificial intelligence, and just saying, well, what if these machines take over and they continue fighting the war, even though we don't want them to. We want the war to stop, but they just want to keep fighting.
Pretty good
And so
foreshadowing, right?
and that's what Endangered Species was about. So we um you know we tried to come up with something more original than zombies or murdering posers or something like that. We just wanted to have a different approach. I mean, I love songs about murdering posers and I love songs about zombies, but we just wanted to have something a little more. Uh, we just said we got to have a different approach, and so Varnum and I collaborated on the lyrics, and we kind of got a loose concept of kind of more of a science fiction, technological, like the bad side effects that can come from science and technology advancing. So that's kind of what we took as a loose concept for Gammacide. And so then you had all these songs about, you know, toxic waste and getting into the environment and causing cancer and things like this. And so that's just seemed like a cool topic for us to base our music around.
Yeah,
Not all
very
the
cool.
songs were about that, but it was just kind of a loose framework for it,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it was cool.
after that album came out, I heard you guys recorded and maybe sold like locally a 5 song demo that I didn't get a chance to hear because it wasn't readily available anywhere, and I couldn't track it down. But you were shopping at record labels. Whatever happened with that second
Well,
album? Why was it looming
well,
out there and it
that's
never took hold?
well, if you have the release that Armando put out, it has those songs on it.
Oh, okay.
Uh, yeah, it's got Crackdown, Forces of Nature, Ballistic, and Sex Cult are the songs from the 91 demo. And that's the well we took the money that Richard C had given us and for Victims of Science our royalty check, and we went back to the studio and we did a new demo to try to get signed to another label. And that demo turned out very good. Um, uh, but at the time, by this time it was 1991, uh, and all the labels were interested was death metal, and
Yeah.
Gammacide was too much of a thrash band for them, and they all said that they were just that wasn't what they were looking for. They were all into Napalm Death and Obituary and things like that, which we love those bands too. You know, we didn't really think there was that big of a difference between bands like that and bands like Gammacide or Exodus or whatever.
No, and they all
But
toured
apparently
together, so
it
they all
was.
had like the same fan base. I mean, I remember that year seeing Sacred Reich was with Obituary and Forced Entry. So they all had the same
Right.
fans showing up for all those
Yeah.
bands. Yeah, it was just I think death metal was the focus of the moment kind of thing.
It was. It
Yeah.
was. And um and we were more and we were thrash. I mean, 100%. So uh our demo didn't we weren't successful getting a new record label. And so we ended up actually just dissolving the band. We played for maybe about until the middle of 1992, but then we just called it a day because we were just it seemed like we were just treading water and not progressing. So
Yeah.
kind of
And
lost interest.
we've had a couple people on the podcast talking about that. We had Brian from Atrophy, we talked about earlier, and we had Bob Mayo from Wargasm on talking about that, how it just kind of ended. It's like they were like big and then it just kind of like flattened out. And I remember it being, I didn't think it was death metal at the time that killed it. I thought it was Nirvana that killed it. I thought that was really the grunge scene
It
killed it more. But I
well,
think it
it
was
it
both.
probably it was probably yeah, both. I mean, the scene really got oversaturated. Thrash was so big, and every label had signed. There was just tons of thrash bands being signed, and I think the market was flooded. And record labels. It seemed like back then they would always do that. They would jump on a trend,
Yeah.
and then they would overdo it to the point where people are sick of it.
Yeah.
And Gammacide got lost kind of in a sea of a bunch of other thrash bands, and it was kind of hard to really stand out from the pack and get noticed and get recognized when there was so many other bands competing for people's attention.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened, I think. And then then eventually people would say, well, I'm tired of this, and they move on to something else.
Yeah. Uh, you moved into some other genres after Gammacide. Um, you have the album. I see the dad shows it here. It
Yeah,
is
yeah. Well, I mean,
Puncture.
I around the same time of as that we put out the 91 demo, I was also experimenting. I had bought a drum machine, and I was listening to other kinds of music as well. Industrial music like Skinny Puppy and Ministry and things like that. And I decided I wanted to try my hand at doing that kind of music, still with the thrash guitar, but more of that electronic industrial sound. And so I I did a demo on the 4-track recorder, and I started getting more response from that than from the 91 Gammacide demo. People were more interested in that. And I guess that was that because that was more of the flavor of the month right then.
Yeah, that was like
Uh
Screw and Godflesh, I think. Was that the same time
yes.
frames, those two? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It was right around the time Godflesh came out. It was probably and Screw, it was before Fear Factory. Um but yeah, Puncture ended up our first album came out on Century Media Records, and and then that one that you have, Immune, is the second one. That came out in '96 on a different label. And Puncture was pretty successful. It was different, uh, simpler riffing but heavy. But yeah, I mean, different kinds of music can still be heavy. It doesn't have to be thrash all the time. Um, I like lots of different kinds of music, but that was just me adapting to the '90s and trying to stay heavy and find
Yeah.
something to do. While it was like a lot of metalheads did that. I think they tried to like reinvent themselves or something. So it
Yeah, and
was just
I think there were some bands like the bands you mentioned. Also, Ministry were kind of king of the hill, and they were kind of I guess paving the way. And like I said, later on, the Fear Factors came out and did some industrial stuff. Bands like Neurosis, I think, were catching on at that point, doing their
yep, yep,
music, not music type stuff, their noise type stuff. So
right.
there's one song on this album that didn't sound like the rest. So most of it was very guitar driven rhythms, and it was good stuff. 669. Tell me about that song. Well, it seemed like it was the one that didn't fit.
Yeah, that was one that were it was all electronic. There was no guitars on it at all. And and that was just an experiment to do something different. Um uh I don't really remember exactly what the thought process behind it was, but it was a different kind of music. It was written uh me and our keyboard player, a guy named Per Nilsson, he was all doing all the programming and sequencing, and me and him would put these songs together. And I think what we did was we said, well, let's do one where there's no guitar, or maybe we just sampled the guitar riff and just played it on the keyboard or something, and and just but still try to make it as crazy and wild and noisy as possible. So
Yeah. I remember the
uh,
first time hearing that album, that song popped up. I was like, huh. I
yeah, that one
had to go
doesn't
back
fit.
and listen to it a couple times and be like, was it the
Yeah,
same band?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they chose that song to be on a compilation album in Dallas, some compilation of local music. They picked that one, so you never can tell.
Yeah, yeah. So you've always been involved in music. What happened after Puncture, and how did you stay involved in music and the scene and everything else?
Well, Puncture, we did some touring. We toured with Guar in 1996 when Immune came out, and uh, we around 1999 is when Puncture had run its course, and uh, my I decided I needed to be a little more responsible and be for my dad or for my daughter, be a better dad to my daughter. And so I pretty much just quit all music around 1999, and I didn't really do anything for about 5 years. I just concentrated on trying to be a good father for my kid. And uh, other than that, I didn't do much. I pretty much sat on the couch and watched Godzilla videotapes all day long. And that was about it. And then around 2005 is when we had a short Gammacide reunion, and we got back together and we played some shows and we put out the album on CD. And then and after that, I uh, Scott Shelby, who's the other guitar player in Gammacide, and I joined forces with the singer of Rigor Mortis, and we put out we formed a band called War Beast. Well, it
War
was
Beast,
called
yeah.
Texas Metal Alliance first, then it changed into War Beast. And War Beast became pretty popular, but um, in fact, it became more popular than I expected, and they were doing a lot more touring than I expected. So I had to quit at that time because I had a job at the time, and I didn't want to. I couldn't give up my job to go touring.
And
And
they were more
and they continued
straight ahead, like heavy metal type band, right? They were, I guess, a little less thrash, if I remember correctly, and just
a little less thrash, but the album that I did with them was a little less thrash, but then after that, they got pretty extreme
they did.
thrash.
Okay.
The second, yeah, they did two more albums after that, and it was pretty extreme thrash. Um, uh, they were very successful. They went to Europe and everything, but I wasn't in the band at that time. Um, at that, t- uh, after I left War Beast, I didn't do much for a few years, but then I formed my other. I have a current band called Iron Jaw, and that's more old school metal in the style of Sabbath, Priest, Motorhead, that kind of stuff. So that's my current band. Besides Gammacide is still active, though, of course. So yeah, there's always metal coming out. I mean, there's
Nice.
The metal
Yeah.
never stops around here.
No, it definitely doesn't.
Uh,
We kind of fast forward here to 2022, 2023. Metal, I feel around then started to come back. And then we come to 2025. There's a big wave of kids listening to older thrash bands. Kids love Slayer still. Everybody loves Slayer. Um, we're starting to see Gammacide and other bands just around that. Like, I guess, I don't know if I could clump Overkill into that, but bands like 90s thrash, uh, late 80s thrash kind of comes back into the scene here. Seen a lot of kids listening to that. Do you feel like there's life coming back to Gammacide, that there's a huge wave of like just kids listening to that and all of that?
I do actually. There wasn't really um, uh, an idea that Gamma Psi was going to reunite and fire it back up. That wasn't really on the agenda at all. Um, but the Hell's Heroes Festival in Houston uh, asked us to reunite to play their festival, and the first year they asked us, we couldn't do it. But then the second time they asked us, which was they asked us to play in the 2025 last year. They asked us to play their festival, and we were able to get it organized, and we did it. And man, it went over great. I mean, we had such a great response. It really um, surprised us all, because uh, we didn't know that there was going to be that much interest in
yeah.
Gammacide. Uh, um, there was people coming up to us from uh, Florida and from all New York and California, and even some from Tokyo. People that come from Japan to see Gammacide, and that was like mind blowing to us. Uh, and a lot of them, Eli, were younger kids like your age. And I was like, and they would come up to us and they'd be asking us questions about stuff that makes me think that I know that they know all about our back history. And I'm saying, how do you know all this stuff? You know, how did you find out about us? And they would say, well, my dad listened to Slayer and Creator and Testament, and I kind of got into it from that, and I started doing my research, and I found you guys, and I think it's great. So we found that over and over again. Uh, um, and so that made us see that there was, a lot of interest in this kind of obscure cultish band. It really surprised us, and so that's what kind of sparked us to keep going. I mean, we thought maybe we might just reunite for that one show, but it went so good and had such a good response that we didn't want to stop. So we wanted to keep going, and because there was all these people from other parts of the United States who had come to that festival and seen us, we said, well, we'll just, we're going to go on tour. So for the first time ever, in last year, Gammacide did like an East Coast tour, and we went up to Baltimore and New York and Chicago and Atlanta. We played all these cities that we'd never been to back in the 89, 90, in the original years. And everywhere we played, there would be old dudes, like me with white hair coming up with, victims of science wanting to take pictures or talk to us and things. But there would also be young kids who were, who were into it. And we've seen it more and more. And even now locally, we're starting to see, I go to a metal show now, and for years, I would always see the same people there, and they're all people my age. But now I'm seeing uh, infusion of fresh young blood coming into the scene, and that's really so good to see, because that's what's going to make the metal scene continue on. Because eventually, the old you know the old fans are going to die, the old musicians are going to die. It's just a fact of life. But there has to be someone new to keep it going, and it seems like it's starting to come around. I see these kids, and they got denim vests on, and they got patches of Death Angel or Celtic Frost on there and things like that, and they got their tight jeans tucked into their high top tennis shoes, and you know, you know, they're emulating the way we used to dress back in the old days. They got bullet belts on and everything. So it's cool. It's totally inspiring for us. Uh, I'm not. Is that how you got into it, Eli? By
My dad,
listening
yeah.
to your dad playing the music, or
Yeah,
yeah.
sounds about
See,
right.
and that's unusual. That's unusual because like whenever I was your age, there's no freaking way I was be interested in what my dad was listening to. My dad would be listening to Neil Sedaka or John Denver, Helen Reddy, and no way that was cool in any way. But metal is really special because it's really a multi-generational thing. Whenever I was first going to concerts, uh, I was 15, 16 years old, and all the rock stars are probably in their early to mid 20s. You know, now you go to a concert and it's a complete range from 15, 16 all the way up to 60 years old.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's I guess that's the best thing we see from the podcast and what we're trying to do from the podcast. I mean, when Eli got interested in heavy music, going through my tape collection and my T-shirt collection from way back when, kind of sparked this. Started off as a little hobby for us. It'd be fun to talk to some people, whatever. But I really think it's important to for the younger kids, for the modern music type people to hear really where everything came from, where
Yeah,
it didn't get heavier per se. The maybe the production got better in modern music or things like that, but the heaviness of those late 80s, early 90s bands, I think that's why they're getting popularity again because it didn't get heavier. It didn't get better. It just those were solid times that bands were doing something that nobody else was doing at the time.
right. And uh I think that the older bands have a little it was just when it's the first when it's the original, and it's not uh I don't know how to put it. The, don't get me wrong, there's some badass new bands coming out, um and I love it to hear new bands coming out with thrash records. But uh just in the old days it was a little more raw and homemade, and I think uh that they I think those new bands are trying to recapture some of that spirit that we had back then. And it's 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 cool to see, man. I think that when Gammacide goes, and when we did that tour last year, I mean, I felt like people were getting a chance to come see is like a frozen caveman came to town or something. Who wouldn't want to go see a Neanderthal man that
Yeah,
still
yeah.
is alive, doing his thing, and so if they come see us, I mean, we're doing the same kind of music that we did back then.
Yeah, and we've been
Uh,
super. I've been super. For lack of a better word, blessed to be able to bring Eli to see a lot of bands that I grew up with before, they weren't bands anymore or couldn't do it anymore. We saw Obituary in a club 3 times in the past 2 years in a very small club.
yeah,
So we got to see a lot of cool things like that happen. We saw Tony Dolan from Venom Inc., who was with Venom for a long time. We saw him in Venom Inc. in a club, and we got to talk to him for on the podcast. So yeah, I think the respect for that generation and what people are doing music and to be able to reconnect with you guys with you is a phenomenal part of what we do here. It's like here's what it was. You may not have heard about them. The internet wasn't around, and there's
yeah.
crazy things like tape traders, like sharing music whenever. But yeah, here's where it really was. Here was the real underground.
I like the concept of your podcast. Uh, you know, I like the riffs across generations. The whole
Yeah,
idea behind it is cool.
yeah.
Very
Thank
cool.
you. So the best news we've seen in a little while here is Gammacide is going back in the studio or preparing to. Can you talk about the new music and the sound and the feel of the new songs?
Yeah, we back in January, we went out to our singer's house, Varnum Pondville. He lives in Louisiana, and he lives down there in the swamp, and he has a little compound down there. And we went there. He has a guy living with him. His name is David Treadway, and he is a audio engineer. And he uh, we went down there and had a. I've never done this before, but it turned out really good. We had an intense songwriting session where we just did nothing for a whole week but work on music. So, I had some ideas, Scott had some ideas, and Barnum had some ideas. We put them all together and we worked on them, and we ended up with 8 songs. And I was hesitant at first, to be honest, because I've got fan mail from people that say, please don't do a shitty reunion album, you know, and they say like so and so band, and I won't
Yeah.
mention the band, but they would say don't do a shitty reunion album like so and so, and and I said, well, of course we're going to try not to, and but so I was in the back of my mind thinking, well, I mean, Victims of Science came out such a long time ago, 35 years ago. It's kind of got a reputation now, and you want to live up to that. But I got to say that this new stuff we're doing, I don't think any Gammacide fan would be disappointed by it because it's got everything you would want. It's got it's we're a little sharper and more skilled as musicians and songwriters, so it's not as crude. It's more of a Cro-Magnon man instead of a Neanderthal man, I think. But it's still definitely savage, and it's all fast, and it's all it's got lead solos, and Barnum sounds great on it, and
Yeah, how is his voice staying his voice after, all these years? And I know Getting Up, I
I
was
don't know, man. He sounds
yeah,
better than ever.
that's amazing.
I was very, I mean, Scott and I, whenever we found out about the Hell Zeros thing, Scott and I got together and we started jamming like for months and months. And it took us a while before we were able to play, you know, up to speed and the way we thought it should be. And then so we rehearsed for a long time. And then like right before Varnum came down and just jammed with us like for one day before we went down there. And he sounded great right from the get-go. So uh, you know, I don't know.
That's awesome.
He's I think he keeps in shape and also but it's just I think maybe living down there in Louisiana, they have a lot of toxic waste in the environment, and I think that probably all seeps into the bloodstream, and that's what helps him, you know, uh, stay with the corrosive kind of vocals that we expect.
Toxic Avenger down there.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
think they're dumping all kinds of stuff into the water down there.
Yeah. So a little bit different this time making new music, not looking to shop it around for a major label or whatever, or how you guys gonna put it out?
Well, we don't know exactly 100% yet. We have some ideas, but I think we're probably gonna uh, license it through a label, and because we've already recorded it. Uh, you know, we we thought we were just doing a demo, but it turned out to be 8 songs. So that's an album length, and David did such a good job on the audio. I mean, the drum sound is that's another thing that's different these days is because back in the old days you had to go to a studio, and when we recorded Victims of Science it cost like $35 an hour, which was probably equivalent to about $150 today. I mean, so it was expensive, and that was the only way you could record your music. Now, I mean, with technology it's so easy to get good sounding recordings at home. So if you have the right guy behind it, and who puts some care into it, I mean, you can do something at home that sounds competitive with what labels are releasing. So um, uh, I'm I can't say exactly when it's coming out. We're hoping to get it out by this summer because we're going to go on tour in September and we're going to go back up to the East Coast. We're playing the Rage of Armageddon Festival in Brooklyn,
All right.
and also the what's the
Blades
other
of
one?
Steel Festival, right?
Blades of Steel in
Yeah.
Wisconsin, and then we're gonna do some shows on the way up and the way back from those, and we hope to have our new album out by that time. Um,
Yeah, that
but
Blades
right
of
now,
Steel festival is outrageous, the bands that are on that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Including Avernus,
Where
so
are you
yeah,
guys? So you're in Florida? You're in
yeah,
Florida?
we're right outside Tampa, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Last time we went to Atlanta. We didn't. We were going to go into Florida, but we didn't. But maybe this time we will. I don't know. What part of Florida are you guys at?
Right near Tampa. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anything we can do if you're around here, yeah, yeah, we know promoters and the clubs here and everything else, so we can help make sure you're not getting scammed and make sure people show up when you come around.
Well, that's good. Awesome. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully the record is out by this summer. Um, and you know, like I said, the metal never stops. It's you're gonna love it, Eli. I mean, if you liked Victims of Science, I think you're gonna love it. Yeah, it's raw. I'll send you guys some rough mixes, maybe,
That'd
so
be
you can check it
fantastic.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, you can contact us through our Facebook. You can get merch on our Bandcamp, uh, um, and we're going to be coming on tour this summer. So if you want to come see the Neanderthal man before while he's still thawed out, you know, it's come check it out. Um, uh, Gammacide is uh, as fast and furious as ever. And we know that people like Andrew have been listening to us for a long time, probably have got a mental image in their mind of what it would be like, and we want to make sure we live up to or exceed that if you come see us. So um, that's it. And thanks to you guys for doing podcasts like this that put a spotlight on bands like us. That's that helps a lot. You know, and my hats off to you guys.
fantastic. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's tough to get metalheads to listen to podcasts sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but, I mean, I listened to them, so I mean, I knew about you guys before you wrote to me, so,
Nice.
'cause I'd seen you I think I saw the one you did with Demolition Man, you
Yeah,
know? I haven't I did no, I saw the Nasty Savage one too, because he
yeah.
is always every interview I've seen of his is so entertaining.
He's a good guy, yeah.
Yeah,
Good
he's
guy.
inspiring.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So again, thanks again. Like Eli said, we appreciate you coming on. I can vouch for your merch being solid. I bought a long sleeve a while ago. It's fantastic. Yeah,
awesome,
yeah, I
awesome,
wanted a long
killing
sleeve.
it.
It's my only long sleeve I have that Eli hasn't stolen. So it's so we appreciate it, Rick, and we look forward to seeing you soon or hearing new music or both.
Thank you so much for the time, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
We good?